Hi, everyone. I'm Paige Lewanig from Jobscan. I'm here with my colleagues, Nick and Frank. I'm a marketing specialist here at Jobscan, and I run our B2C webinar with our users. So I show them how to use Jobscan and teach them about ATS. I've probably spoken to some of you before. Nick, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah. So for today's agenda, we're just going to cover a quick introduction here of our team. We're going to go over a little bit about our applicant tracking system review and updates that we just feel is important for everybody to kind of get a better grasp on. Then we're going to go over kind of what Jobscan's marketing support can offer for our university partners. And then we're going to have our chat with Baylor University, who is Jobscan's #1 partner in terms of adoption. They see the highest adoption across the board for their students. So I'm Nick. I'm the senior account manager here with Jobscan. I oversee university partnerships, nonprofits, and outplacement. So any questions that current partners have are directed to me. And if we haven't had a chance to chat, please feel free to shoot me an email. I'll follow this webinar up with an email as well with our recording.
Hi, everyone. Frank Sano here, Senior Account Executive at Jobscan. I work with Nick, but on the other side of the business, growing the business development of universities, outplacement firms all across the world. We're excited to have you here and to educate you, and more importantly, excited to have Baylor as our guest speaker today as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I mentioned this a few minutes ago, but you'll notice as you all come into this webinar, you're muted. We still want to get questions from you and make sure we're addressing those questions. So please put those in the chat box that's down at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And I'm going to be collecting those questions, and we'll have a Q&A at the end with both us and Baylor. So definitely put all of your questions down there in the chat. All right, Nick. So I'm just going to say a few things about ATS. I'm sure you all know a lot about applicant tracking systems since you're already involved with Jobscan, but applicant tracking systems are used by 99% of Fortune 500 companies. And while they're super, super useful to hiring managers, they make things a little bit trickier for the job seeker. And that just means that every resume requires careful optimization based on ATS keywords. So Jobscan was built to mimic ATS. Our algorithm is built to give you the same, effectiveness getting through that ATS as any real applicant tracking system would. So we're constantly doing market research, constantly looking at the top 50 to 60 ATS and updating our tool to match how those are currently functioning. That might be based on terminology, whether or not top ATS can pick out plurals and singular versions of the same word, whether those will be a match. It might be formatting related, whether ATS are able to parse these columns or text boxes, as many can't. We just want your students to have the most up-to-date information, and we believe that they deserve to have this updated as often as possible so that they have the best chance at getting through ATS. And I always think of Jobscan really as just your trial run. It's your student's trial run, submitting their resume to an ATS, since it is going to function the same way. So rather than just kind of throwing it out there into the abyss, we're giving students a chance to actually see how that resume is going to stack up.
And I'd also like to point out, when it comes to minor changes within ATSs that we kind of come across, whether that's terminology differences, if an ATS system isn't as sensitive to adding S's on the end of, marketing or marketer, marketers,
yeah,
terminology like that, we update it without necessarily contacting everyone to tell them about these updates. Any major updates though with ATSs that may shift systems in terms of even the file formatting of what's required with an ATS is information that we would reach out and kind of provide with our current university partners.
Yeah.
Do you have something more there, Paige?
I was just going to say, and we kind of err on the side of caution. So there are, certain ATS that might recognize plurals and others that don't, but If the vast majority don't recognize plurals, for example, we'll make sure that our scan tool is also not recognizing those plurals, and we'll make sure that we point that out in the match report.
Alrighty, so as I said, what we kind of want to cover today is just kind of go over, like, I think a lot of the 2021 partners, university partners, may know a little bit more about like the marketing support that we can provide directly to universities. But for those more tenured partners, we're trying to implement a larger push for, Jobscan marketing to universities. In addition to that, just increasing adoption among students. So in terms of marketing support, what we have now is templated emails. I've got a few examples here. We can also do white labeling on websites. So if your career services has a resource page where you want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you offer to students, we can certainly provide that with a Jobscan label and a link there. We have university one-pagers, which we are looking to launch kind of more, not necessarily with updates, but with different statistics periodically. So hopefully like quarter by quarter, we can send out new one-sheeters. We'll go over this again. I got another slide for it. Jobscan consumer webinars. So right now, Paige is hosting our monthly webinars for all users, consumers, university partners, any partner out there, where we really just go over best practices for the tool. However, we'd love to launch one depending on the response, more targeted towards students. So undergrad, graduate, alumni, with a larger presence of like the ATS focus, like what an ATS is, what they do, why they're utilized, and how Jobscan can kind of combat against them. Additionally, we'll be chatting with Baylor here and talking a little bit about how they've increased adoption through a bunch of ways, templated emails, implementing the Jobscan solution within their curriculum. And then we'll end here with a Q&A again with the Jobscan team alongside Baylor. All right, so for templated emails, these are going to be emails where you'd work alongside your account manager, who's myself. And essentially, we would come up with messaging that would be best or most appropriate for your student body. So depending on, there's a lot of different packages here at Jobscan, whether that's like individual coach packages with an allotted number of students, or like a full university package where every student has access. Either way, those templated emails can kind of provide a better understanding to students and kind of just even a reminder that, hey, we have this tool, this is what it's for. Through our market research, we've learned that it's a lot more based on graphics than it is on text with students. So our marketing team here has kind of been able to provide stats and graphics for things that students truly care about, like 3x more interviews or shortening the actual job search time by, we'll call it half. I think it's 46. Yeah, 46% here. Additionally, within this, we can always brand it. So after we kind of create this templated email with ourselves and whatever representative may come from the career services side, we can even send it from the career services email so that students are getting emails from their faculty as well. We've got an example here. I can't take credit for this. This was Widener University, and this was made by Lauren, who I think is in this chat today or joining here. Lauren created this as a templated email where her and I conducted a webinar for her students to kind of get a better understanding on how to utilize Jobscan. In this webinar, we actually did like a full walkthrough of this is how you sign on, this is what you do here, or this is like, you build a resume, or you put your resume directly in. So this is kind of the templated email that she's created, and we were able to send out to her students. And we actually got a pretty good response there. We even broke out into focus groups, is that what they're called in Zoom, where we were able to just kind of chat one-on-one with students. So from here, again, it's sent from the career services. We can do targeted subject lines. I even think the one that Lauren wrote here was like, are you struggling to get interviews? Here's why. So really impactful targeted subject lines, again, customized messaging, and the graphics and webinar links are available. Webinars that either, we can conduct together, or are monthly webinars for specifically targeted towards students. For our one-pagers, so this is our Q1 2022 one-pager on the right side here. This is going to be a little bit more impactful. Although you could utilize this as a templated email in a way, like you could just send these to students. There's a lot more information on them. However, it does have graphics as well. Essentially with this though, we can add on your school logo in case you're interested in like a print off here for your career services center, or maybe you have a course within your curriculum that talks about resume building or, career finding. We can actually print this off for those students and include the logo. I think right now we're putting the logo down here, but we can also, we can really put it anywhere. So printouts again for career fair or career centers, customizable text. And we can also again, if you have that package deal with just a single coach and multiple or like a number of allotted students beneath that coach, we can include sign-up details like either reach out to career services or reach out to this particular career advisor within this document. All right, so now we are gonna kind of shift over a little bit and talk with Baylor University's Career Services, Michael Estep and Andrew Bowles. I'm gonna do a quick introduction here. So Michael is a part of the leadership team for Baylor Career Center. He has worked with Baylor University for nearly a decade, and he is dedicated to delivering the best possible career management educational experience to Baylor students, alumni, and employers. Michael and the entire Career Center team do this by providing personalized career coaching, professional development, employer events, and top resources to establish a foundation for lifelong growth and a solid professional path for every student. Michael's 20 plus year career has been focused on coaching, training, and developing individuals to assist them in achieving their professional goals, including 6 years focusing on headhunting and recruiting for human resources. Michael is also the co-author of College to the Career You Love, a book written to give students the courage and confidence to take ownership of their career goals. Andrew is a graduate of ACU with a degree in physics. He is also a graduate of UTSA with a Master's of Science degree in electrical engineering with a focus in computer engineering and an emphasis on machine learning. Andrew is responsible for the Career Center's data, FDS reporting, tools, and technology. He serves as an integral role and has helped his Career Center be more efficient and data-driven. His responsibilities include overseeing career tools like Jobscan that help the staff, aid in a staff efficiency and student success. So Michael and Andrew, thank you so much again for joining us. I think we're just gonna start with the beginning here. And my first question is, how were you introduced to Jobscan?
So I'll jump in here real quick. So as a career center, we're always looking at ways and things to make us more efficient. As a staff, obviously, most of our career centers are resource constrained. So we're always looking at ways to increase efficiencies. And in some points in time, we have technology budgets. And so we may not have the headcount. And so that's one piece of kind of our strategy. The other piece is, what can we give students to replicate the process that they're in? So whether that's an ATS system, a resume interviewing tool, I think we're all looking at things to where we can duplicate that career journey for the students so they're more comfortable with it, especially in times like now with COVID and things like that, or coming out of COVID. So those are kind of our two main philosophies. And so all the staff is constantly looking for things to make us better. But several years ago, we saw on a Twitter feed, Jobscan come across, and Jobscan piqued our interest because at the time we were trying to purchase ATS full system, full scale ATS systems that our students could go through just so they could see how they were ranked, how they were scored, and kind of go through some similar processes that Jobscan is offering and offers our students. And so once we saw that Twitter feed, we engaged with James, and I think within 2 or 3 weeks, we're the first university partner for Jobscan.
Yeah, I like the Twitter story. And I also think that's interesting when you were actually investigating ATSs so that you could provide it for your students to see both sides of the ATSs. Do you recall what ATS, I know it was a while ago, but do you recall what ATSs you were looking into?
We looked at several, Sovereign and Taleo, just to name a few, but we reached out to probably 6 or 7 vendors at least. And obviously the costs were exorbitant. And obviously this was a solution that was one-on-one based, but we thought it could scale for career centers, and especially for us to give students a look into that process and how to make their candidacy more impactful and more purposeful and see more success.
So Michael, I know that Baylor is kind of an early adopter to a lot of different resume technologies. And I know you've looked into a lot of them. So, resume technologies across the board, but like what sort of influence is implementing a solution like Jobscan brought to your student population?
As far as our student population, we've seen serious excitement. We integrated into our one-on-one career coaching. And so all of our staff have access to it. We have the university-wide model. So we embrace Jobscan. And so then we also bring it into our curriculum. We have some mandatory career classes that we have on campus, and then we have some elective courses that we teach as well. And so those are integrated and assignment based. And when we're meeting with students and they're just not seeing success before we introduce Jobscan, we have the solution and we teach them and walk them through the Jobscan process where they can log on, get their scores, make adjustments, and improve their scores. And then we call it increasing their traction rate, but basically hopefully applying to 10 jobs or more and getting somewhere between 30 and 40% success rate, having a company reach out and do a pre-employment screen or a pre-employment video, psychometric test, some type of first round interaction. And we've seen students go from 5 to 6% traction to 40, 45, 50% traction. We even had a handful of students like almost go through the roof to 70 and 80% and have multiple choices on internship searches and full-time searches. So it's made a huge impact. And so when the students can see how it works, it's easy for them to continue that process after they start seeing some increased traction and stop getting auto declines.
Certainly. Love to see that sort of student success too. In terms of like the career services side, how has implementing a tool like Jobscan eased the day-to-day of your career services representatives?
Yeah, so we feel like this is crucial in improving our efficiency. Pre-Jobscan, obviously we get the resume into our Baylor approved resume template, but after that we start the fitting process, talk about effective bullet points and some other aspects of our specific template. And so pre-Jobscan, that would take about 4.2 to 4.3 meetings for a student. And so now with the resume in the proper form, then we go through the fitting process. That's been reduced to about 1.8 to 2.0 resume meetings. So then that frees up times for staff to have able to handle, other career assessment and discovery type appointments, LinkedIn appointments, other things, and then free up time to deal with employers, events on campus and things like that. So it's made us incredibly efficient. The students are efficient and self-help themselves. And so the process has worked really well for us in a resource constraint, industry like we have, to be able to not be allowed to bring on a headcount at full price, but bringing on a tool that can, help reduce that type of workload has been critical. And we've seen a lot of success both on the student side and our career center side.
So how exactly were you able to prioritize? Like, I know that Baylor has, a lot of different technologies that are utilized amongst the student population, but how, because there's certain technologies that you utilize amongst just certain focuses like business or communications, but Jobscan is a campus-wide tool for you. So how was that justified in let's make sure that Jobscan is available to every student versus just the business student or the alumni?
Yeah, absolutely. We recently did a reorg with our career center on campus. And so now it's just one centralized unit. And so as we look at tools and resources, obviously with limited budgets, we have to first look at, what makes the biggest impact. So Drew, I was lucky to hire Drew a few years ago, and he's a valuable asset to the Career Center. But we go through all of our tools and look at cost versus usage and utilization rate for our students. And so then we have to apply our budgets. But by far, Jobscan is our most utilized tool and the most impactful tool. And that's why we want it to be in other areas outside of, we use it in the business school and engineering, computer science, but we use it across campus because we see all of these students getting excited about getting traction, especially in some areas where we have students that may or may not get a major, and that career directly relates to their major, and then being able to apply for jobs like a psychology student that may apply for a marketing position because they can use that psychology degree to think about customer decision making and processes and things like that. And so having them go that route, if that's where they choose, to be able to put that job description and put their resume into fitting it, because I think we can all agree everybody looks at a job description and thinks they're perfect for it. And then they send that generic resume and they get that auto decline or they don't get any traction. This really pushes all the students, no matter what major or college they're in, to think outside the box and to think about all those details that are in their mind that make them a great candidate, and make sure and forces them or makes it awareness or creates awareness to get all those details and keywords and phrases and terminologies on the paper where they think they had it, but they may have missed it. And Jobscan hits a home run for us all across campus, not just in the business school and engineering computer science.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to move into how Baylor really provides the tool to students. So I've actually got a next slide for it too. So how Baylor markets Jobscan to students. Now I know that there's a ton of different ways here. Like, as we had mentioned earlier, you have it implemented within the curriculum for a particular course. I do want to dive in onto that, but I just want to touch on, so I know that your team also conducts the templated emails with statistics like best time of day to actually send these emails. You also do like those targeted subject lines based on the clicks that you're going to see from them. I guess let's start with the university or the implementation within the curriculum. So like, what courses are responsible for hosting Jobscan and where does it come into play within that course?
Yeah, so currently right now we offer mandatory and elective-based career classes. So we have about 16 sections of what we call PRD, which is our professional development platform that kind of goes through careers A through Z. And then we have our business school version of that, which is broken up into two classes, kind of a 2101 and a 3101. And then we have a graduate version of that. And so we realized the importance of using this not only in the one-on-one career coaching setting and then the students using them themselves. We want to make sure that they understand how to use the tool and how powerful and effective it could be. So we've created assignments around Jobscan. So just a quick overview of what we do, but basically the students have to pick a position that they're interested in applying for, going through the process and not fitting their resume and going through the Jobscan and then outputting their current job match scan score, right? So that's usually somewhere below 20 or up to 30, 35 if the students are doing well. Then they have to go through the process of updating it based off the feedback that Jobscan's getting, and then they have to submit their new scan or their history of scans through a Canvas with screenshots, and then actually submitting an initial resume that wasn't fitted, and then a secondary resume that's been fitted and gone through Jobscan and then got a minimum score based on our rubric. So it's a somewhat labor-intensive process, but this is the process that we want students to duplicate in their job search so they see results. And then also this outlines the impact that Jobscan can make. So it's almost like a gamification feature. You know, if I make these changes, I have this much chance or an improved chance of getting more traction within a job search.
I think that we had touched on this in a previous conversation, but when you're actually like conducting the course, when does Jobscan, like if it's a resume building course, right? Or it's just an all around career finding course? We
meet, and depending on which version, we meet anywhere from 2 to 3 times to discuss resumes. We usually have it split into 3 main sections. One is the first piece is basically the template and making sure that it's a Baylor approved template just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Usually the second topic or the second, third topic together is a combination of effective bullet points. So how do we eliminate task-based bullet points and get to the full story and have impact deliverable results so the recruiter can choose you versus someone else. And so that's usually in the second one. And if we combine the 2 and 3 together, that's a long, not long, but a pretty thorough description of ATS, how systems are used, why they're used. And then we go over several best practices to get them through the system. And then we do an intro of Jobscan, actually have them do the assignment for Jobscan. And we have some extra videos and tutorials that are built into Canvas to help the students navigate that. So it's the second, third, and usually 5th week of the semester. But we always break the resumes up into at least 2, sometimes 3 sections, depending on the class, because they're important to landing the interview.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I was going to ask you about the ATS side and when that comes into play too. So I'm glad you were able to cover that. What processes do you have in place to ensure that students that aren't enrolled in these courses still get exposure to Jobscan?
Yeah, absolutely. So we use those targeted and templated emails.
Yep.
We actually do a lot of social media outreach. Our marketing folks do a great job. We usually use Facebook to target kind of more of our parent audience, and Instagram and other channels to target the students. And so we'll send marketing material based off that. Before our large scale career fairs, in the fall, we see roughly 3,000 students. In the spring, we see roughly 2,000 or more students. So we do, outreaches and workshops and make sure that they have practical understanding and knowledge for those students that aren't in those classes, to where they'll be able to apply Jobscan and use that. And then another thing we do is we try to do a few, they're not mandatory appointments, but we have assigned career coaches by major and by school. And so our folks will reach out to the students that are assigned to them. And so our coaches all have access, all have unlimited. We have a Baylor-wide or college-wide plan or program. And so as a part of that process, we usually want to have a career discovery meeting with a student. We want to have a resume meeting with a student, interviewing, and then an activity or kind of, a checkup to make sure that they're, applying and they're focused on careers, or at least somewhat engaged in the process. And a part of that, that resume appointment, all of our folks are trained and integrate Jobscan into that 30-minute to an hour-long resume appointment. That way the students are empowered to use that tool yourself. Then we also have Handshake. We were like the fourth school to sign on with Handshake years ago. And we have all of our student resources organized by college. And so Jobscan, our Jobscan best practices, and all of our Jobscan tools are in there so the students can self-help themselves if they can't get into an appointment. So we kind of give them multiple accesses of ways to where we can either integrate into the class, we can integrate into one-on-one career coaching, or we can integrate that into some of the tools and websites that we have so they can self-help themselves.
Okay. I've got this next one's kind of a two-part question, and I think one of them will be for Drew, but I'm not sure you'll have the answer for it. But I'm going to start with, so while I know that you have the career courses that are dedicated to the applicant tracking systems and kind of breaking those down for students and what they are and how they're utilized, but do you feel as though students who aren't enrolled in those career courses yet still have access to jobs areas are increasing their knowledge of ATSs and a grasp on a better understanding of how to apply in today's job market? So in other words, those students that aren't enrolled in those courses, but are still utilizing Jobscan, do you think they're increasing their knowledge on ATSs as a whole through the usage of it?
Yeah, and I'll let Drew chime in here, but anecdotally, I can absolutely say yes. So we have a staff of roughly 25 or 26 folks, and in our meetings, we're constantly referring to the students' improved knowledge and things like that, that we know the students that aren't in class are picking up the message. And then if you look at some of our success and placement numbers, and Drew can dive into those, but we just finished, obviously, the undergraduate 21 placement cycle. We had 3,005 students graduate. We got 3,001 FDS surveys back, and roughly we were at an 84% placement and 87% success. And we know that those students that use Jobscan were roughly 10 to 15% better, more effective, had more offers because of that service. So our numbers keep going up on that side. So that's one metric that we use. But then we also have to look at and starting to look at, real life internships and seeing how many offers they have to choose from now versus how many they had to choose from before. We brought on Jobscan because it's not just about landing the one job, but it's about having multiple offers and choices, whether it's geographic preference, salary, companies, industries, and functions, and Jobscan helps us do that. Is that close to answering your question?
Yeah,
Nick?
certainly. And then Drew, I know that you're kind of more the data-driven side. So I guess my question would be taking the students that are enrolled in those courses, separating them from the students that don't have that exposure. What do you see as, and you might not have this number, but what do you see as more impactful, those templated emails or the social media outreach in terms of not necessarily advertising Jobscan, but providing it as a resource there? Do you see that a lot of students respond really well to the templated emails, or do they respond more when they see it on Instagram and come to their career sources or career services side?
I'd say probably the templated emails. So you mentioned it briefly, but our marketing department does a great job of, well, we don't only do it through Handshake, but we also have them through actually our content management system. So we have our own Career Center email set up to where we can send it out and we can track which students click on things, which students open it. And then we've actually did a analysis on when the best time to send messages to students, like Tuesday and Thursday afternoon is better than Monday and Wednesday, maybe because there's less class load or different things. And actually nights and weekends are a great time to be able to reach them because they're actually, looking at their phone, they have their phone on them or whatever. And so we found that that's a lot more effective. And on top of that, another way that we really leverage students that are not in the system, meaning are not in a mandatory career class, is, you kind of mentioned this more, Michael did, but our appointments. So there were, in 2021, we had over 1,000 resume appointments with non-career center or career class students. And in all of those, they would have at least been exposed to Jobscan, right? And then, word of mouth or whatever, because once Jobscan works for someone else is going to then, tell their buddy or tell whomever else, right? So I'd say the combination of appointments with our career center and targeted outreach, and probably as far as social media, Facebook pressure from parents back to students is really a great way to get students going, and that's always helpful. So, yeah.
I think one thing, Nick, that we're going to do that we haven't done before, that's more on the creative side, and we'll definitely update you guys after the fact, but we're going to host an event through Handshake that's resume development. And so for those, basically have a competition. And so we're going to use it for student success and obviously increase the awareness of Jobscan, but we're also going to use that to help train our staff. So basically we're going to open up a job per se for different functional interests in industries and colleges, and basically have a contest to where they will use Jobscan and the scores. And so all of our CSPs, which are career success professionals, will kind of be the first tranche of Jobscan and the ATS. And so then they'll filter up their winners to the next level, and then they'll filter up the next winners to the level into leadership. And then at the end, based on who we think has the highest score and the most effective and fitted resume, that student per college would win some type of award. We're actually thinking through that campaign right now, and we're looking forward to hopefully getting another 300, 400, 500 users out of this particular type of campaign. So things like that really get students interested. So
yeah, certainly. Kind of a side question. So when it comes to, I've lost my train of thought on it. All right, I'm going to go back to my next one. So Andrew, I know that you oversee the data behind usage of Jobscan and other technologies at Baylor. And I've got my next slide for this too. For the statistics side, what sort of success have you reported due to Jobscan's influence specifically?
Sure. So I can go over this real briefly. So most of you, if not all of you, are part of NACE. And so, as you know, NACE standards are success rates. And so we also give those, but we also utilize a placement rate, which is simply the number of students that have accepted a full-time opportunity divided by that same number that have accepted plus those that are seeking a full-time opportunity. So this focuses only on those that are looking and striving for a full-time opportunity. We also do a graduate school rate, for graduate school, and a success rate. But this placement rate really is specific to Jobscan because students utilize Jobscan to apply to jobs and obtain full-time placement. So we did during the 2021 placement cycle, which is closed, undergraduate students that use Jobscan, as you can see here, had almost 93% placement rate compared to those that did not use Jobscan, which was 81%. And so, almost, almost a 12% increase there, which is very significant. And then we also were looking at, as Michael said, we have a mandatory business school career class. And so all of those students are going to be pushed through Jobscan. So we also looked at seeing outside of the business school, which, are students more successful that use Jobscan. Sure enough, it's over 7% are more are higher placed than those that did not use Jobscan. So this is a direct indication that Jobscan works, certainly. And I also looked at some statistics. I think during 2021 we had nearly something like 15,000 resume scans, and some students go crazy and scanning hundreds and hundreds of times, but we push our students through that, and it's really showing with their placement rates. So I hope that answered your question.
And Drew, if you could just validate this. I know it's an anecdotal statement, but for us, these numbers are high, right? But this just looks at 21. And so if we look at 3 years before we integrated this into the Career Center, where everyone had it versus just business and ECS students had it, we have FDS data that shows some of our colleges and majors in our sciences fields, in our communications, more traditional liberal arts fields, would be somewhere in the 90 to 180 days at the 40 and 50% success rate. And over the last 3 years, those have skyrocketed. And so now we're looking at some of our colleges being in the upper 70s to low 80s at the 180-day mark in placement and success, where 3 or 4 years ago, when they didn't have this tool, they were in the high 40s to low 50s, and that's not even with the high knowledge rate compared to the department that used to operate on campus, right? So anecdotally, I feel comfortable saying that I don't know the percentage of impact, but since the whole entire school has access to it, I would feel comfortable saying and stating that Jobscan has been a significantly critical component for us increasing those numbers to those more liberal arts or sciences type majors. Drew, would you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, so we emerged as a career center, as Michael said, in early 2019, and we have some data beforehand and also during that first year that we emerged. And it was since then we've had in the liberal arts and health sciences, we've had a 20 to 30% placement and success rate increase since then, which certainly some of that would be attributed to the increased engagement in all of our resources, and the main one for placement being Jobscan. So, I could say that's certainly correlated there. Yeah.
And honestly, like when I look at, and you asked this earlier, but when I look at my tools and my budgets, and I see what makes the biggest impact, our leadership, I believe Jeff Stubbs is on the call and Ken Buckley, but our leadership always looks at, where can we make the biggest impact, right? And so if our university during COVID came to us and said, hey, your budget's reduced by 70%, what tool are you going to use out of the 15 that you have? Jobscan would be by far the one we would keep first, right? Because we know that if they use it, they get more opportunities, their resumes are fitted and targeted, and they get more traction in the internship and the full-time search process. And so I don't have any skin in the game or equity in Jobscan, but I know the impact that it makes with students. I've been doing this at Baylor for 10 years, and I was doing executive headhunting and recruiting when a lot of these things started developing 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so you got to be able to play the game to be successful. And this helps our students play the game and be competitive. And our numbers show that. So.
Love to hear that. All right, my last question. So when it comes to like Jobscan usage, amongst like alumni, graduates, and those upperclassmen, we see it's really utilized because, those are the true job seekers. Whereas, freshmen and sophomore are more aiming for like the internships, but taking those out, when you implement it within a course, and I know that, Jobscan can be utilized from the internship all the way to the executive level. However, with those students that aren't really aiming for jobs, how beneficial do you think it is to introduce them to Jobscan as more of a learning tool for the future?
I think it's very important. And just so you guys know, our mandatory career classes start at the sophomore year. Okay. And so we're big fans of internships. And so internships and the emphasis on internships make our job easier because internships are always positive. If they go and have a great experience, then obviously they convert or they do a second internship, their rising junior to senior year, right? So there's a lot of companies 10 years ago that wouldn't give a rising sophomore an internship, but now more than ever, we're seeing that. So we're pushing rising sophomore to junior internships. We're pushing rising junior to senior internships because that helps us be more efficient and the students have choices and help on the career assessment and discovery. Because if it doesn't work out, then the internships are so positive because they go find something else for their career or an industry or function or different companies with values and things like that. And so that's why the earlier you can incorporate this, the better, because I think we can all agree there's a lot of good stuff on career assessment and discovery. But at the end of the day, until you're actually doing it or talking to someone that's doing it, all that informational interview type styles, there's not much more that can be helpful. But if they can get into this tool and use it and start thinking about keywords and branding and some of the industries and functions they're going to get into. But we have a lot of our sophomores using this as a part of our class. And we've seen them get internships where a few years ago, companies wouldn't have considered rising sophomores. So.
Awesome. So that is the questions I have. I mean, I really appreciate, you two taking the time to join us and kind of cover a little bit about Jobscan at Baylor and the increased adoption there. I'd like to open the floor up at this time if there are any questions from any attendees that maybe just want to get a better understanding of, how Baylor goes about implementing it or the success rate that they've seen.
So I have a question. I'm wondering if every student has a Jobscan account and that's how they're able to access Jobscan. I don't know if I missed that information, but if you don't mind repeating that again?
Yeah, Nick, did you want to review our process or did you want to?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
So we offer a few different packages there, like, whether it's a career coach at a career services center or, within the MBA program that has an allotted number of students under them. Baylor's a little bit different, and this is a package that's offered here at Jobscan. They have a university-wide subscription. So every student that has a baylor.edu email domain just signs in and gains access.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Any other questions there?
Yeah, so do they upload that list of students to get them their accounts ahead of time, or is it similar to a single sign-on type of feature?
That's a good question. So it's funny because now I'm hearing the packages that are out there, but no, so there is that upload function, then there's the add individual students, and then like the third and the top package that is offered is like the full university unlock. So there's no uploading of individual students. It's just if they have that email domain of at youruniversity.edu, they're granted access. So that's when, as on our team, we white label it on the site, students go to it, they just type in their email, set a password, and they're good to go. If there are questions on those, like the styles of packages there too, here, actually I got my next slide. Please feel free to email me directly. I'm sure if you're in this chat, you probably got my email with the invitation here, but feel free to ask me about any of those like packages that are offered or anything that goes along with that, because I can certainly provide more detail. And the last thing I wanted to mention, I saw a question in the chat concerning education of career coaches. So when it comes to educating career coaches, I find like that's like one of the most impactful things to have Jobscan utilized at the correct, at the top level there. So if you're interested in having your career staff or any user of the tool be educated like more in depthly from a career coach perspective, feel free to ping me and we can set up some time to kind of just go over exactly best practices of how to utilize the tool. And this goes for Baylor too. If you guys are interested in kind of having the career coach side get a better understanding of exactly like, how to upload students, best practices, common questions like why can't I upload a cover letter without a resume, or keeping formatting the same in our power editing section, the upload difference versus the copy and paste. Those are common questions that we can totally go over. So if there's ever questions like that, feel free to email me and we can set up some time to chat.
And Nick, we're, obviously our people are hitting us up on LinkedIn as this is going direct, but we're happy to talk to anybody. We often say we like to spread the gospel of career centers and best practices because we're not doing everything right. We're doing some stuff good. And so we always love to learn best practices from other places and how they're adopting and using not only just job scans and the tools, but just in general, just so we can provide the best services for our students. Because I doubt we'll ever hit it, but we're always striving to hit 100% placement or success. And so if anybody wants to reach out to us, we're happy to share what we do on the data side or the career coaching side, or just from a career center strategy standpoint.
Thank you for that. Alrighty, well, I guess that would conclude our webinar. We will reach out. I've created a recording of this, so I can certainly send it as a follow-up to all individuals that attended and those who